All right, guys, we're still on the power of the market. The power of the market. This one's called A Broader View. Still the first chapter of Milton Friedman's Free to Choose. It's called A Broader View. Remember, we studied the role of prices, transmission of information, incentives, distribution of income. So, a broader view. Adam Smith's invisible hand is generally regarded as referring to purchases or sales of goods or services for money. But economic activity is by no means the only area of human life in which a complex and sophisticated structure arises as an unintended consequence of a large number of individuals cooperating while each pursues his own interests. But economic activity is by no means the only area of human life in which a complex and sophisticated structure arises as an unintended consequence of a large number of individuals cooperating while each pursues his own interests. So it's saying this individuals working together for his own interests, for his desire for a better life, is not just through economic activity. Consider, for example, language. It is a complex structure that is continually changing and developing. It has a well-defined order, yet no central body planned it. No central body planned it. No one decided that words should be admitted into the language. What the rules of grammar should be, which words should be adjectives, which nouns. The French Academy does try to control changes in the French language, but that was a late development. It was established long after French was already a highly structured language, and it mainly serves to put the seal of approval on changes over which it has no control. There have been few similar bodies for other languages. How did language develop? In much the same way as an economic order develops through the market, out of voluntary interaction of individuals. In this case, seeking to trade ideas or information or gossip rather than goods and services with one another. Like they were just they had a talk, you know? Out of voluntary interaction of individuals, in this case seeking to trade ideas or information or gossip rather than goods and services with one another, just to socialize. One or another meaning was attributed to a word, or words were added as the need arose. Grammatical usages developed and were later codified into rules. Two parties who want to communicate with one another both benefit from coming to a common agreement about the words they use. Common agreement. As a wider and wider circle of people find it advantageous to communicate with one another, a common usage spreads and is codified in dictionaries. At no point is there any coercion, any central planner who has power to command, though in more recent times, government school systems have played an important role in standardizing usage. Like you can't just make shit up, you know? Another example is scientific knowledge. The structure of disciplines, physics, chemistry, meteorology, philosophy, humanity, sociology, economics, was not the product of a deliberate decision by anyone. Like Topsy, it just growed. It did so because scholars found it convenient. It is not fixed, but changes as different needs develop. It is not fixed, but changes as different needs develop. Within any discipline, the growth of these subjects strictly parallels the economic marketplace. Scholars cooperate Scholars cooperate with one another because they find it mutually beneficial. They accept from one another's work what they find useful. They exchange their findings by verbal communication, by circulating unpublished papers, by publishing in journals and books. Cooperation is worldwide, just as in the economic market. The esteem or approval of fellow scholars serves very much the same function that monetary reward does in the economic market. The desire to earn that esteem, to have their work accepted by their peers, leads scholars to direct their activities in scientifically efficient directions. So that's an incentive right there. The whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. As one scholar builds on another's work, his work in turn becomes the basis for further development. Modern physics is as much a product of a free market in ideas as a modern automobile is a product of a free market in goods. Ideas, goods, intellectual capital. Here again, developments have been much influenced, particularly recently, by government involvement, which has affected both the resources available and the kinds of knowledge that have been in demand. Yet government has played a secondary role. Indeed, one of the ironies of the situation is that many scholars who have strongly favored government central planning of economic activity have recognized very clearly the danger to scientific progress that would be imposed by central governing or government planning of science. Recognize very clearly the danger to scientific progress that would be imposed by central government planning of science. Look at Elon Musk, what he just did, how he's able to bring back what we just discharged into the ocean. He's able to save that and recycle it, and he's sending rockets up there at like 20x less of a price. It takes what takes NASA billions of dollars. He's doing it with millions of dollars. So, and he's recycling things as well, and that's because of the free market. So he's saying there's like a even 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 scholars who who favor government central planning of economic activity recognize the clear danger to scientific progress that would be imposed by central government planning of science, the danger of having priorities imposed from above rather than emerging spontaneously from the gropings and explorations of individual scientists. So having priorities imposed from above rather than emerging spontaneously from the gropings and explorations of individual scientists. A society's values, its culture, its social conventions, all these develop in the same way. Through voluntary exchange, spontaneous cooperation, the evolution of a complex structure through trial and error, acceptance and rejection. No monarch ever decreed that the kind of music that is enjoyed by residents of Calcutta, for example, should differ radically from the kind enjoyed by residents of Vienna. These widely different musical cultures develop without anyone's planning them that way. And hence the beauty of we want to celebrate diversity, but we wouldn't have a diverse place if we were controlled. The dichotomy, the beauty of knowing these things. You can't be fooled. Like you can't fool me. Like you scream for diversity, but yet you wanna have us live in this centralized world through a kind of social evolution paralleling biological evolution. A social evolution paralleling biological evolution. Though, of course, individual sovereigns or even elected governments may have affected the direction of social evolution by sponsoring one or another musician or type of music, just as wealthy private individuals did. Though, of course, individual sovereigns or even elected governments may have affected the direction of social evolution by sponsoring one or another musician or type of music, just as wealthy private individuals did. Hmm. But damn, that kind of slapped me in the face with what I just said right now. Because I believe in that too. Like, are they not pumping violent sexual music, idiotic music? But that's also the control that it's also points to them having control and them kind of like deciding to keep us, or is that the free market? Is that just human nature? They like, is human nature like sexual things? Do we just desire violence? Does that interest us more? Or is that planned? Is that shown to us by these individual sovereigns or elected governments? Is human nature that way? Or is it shown to us so they could capitalize? Or, I mean, they're capitalizing off it anyway, but is it more valuable than being this holy individual? Maybe, right? The structures produced by voluntary exchange, whether they be language or scientific discoveries or musical styles or economic systems, develop a life of their own. So the structures produced by voluntary exchange, whether they be language, scientific discoveries, the language structures, scientific structures, musical styles, or economic systems, develop a life of their own. They are capable of taking many different forms under different circumstances. Voluntary exchange can produce uniformity in some respects combined with diversity in others. Voluntary exchange can produce uniformity in some respects combined with diversity in others. It is a subtle process whose general principles of operation can fairly readily be grasped, but whose detailed results can seldom be foreseen. It's a subtle process whose general principles of operation. It is a subtle process whose general principles of operation can fairly readily be grasped, but whose detailed results can seldom be foreseen. These examples may suggest not only the wide scope for voluntary exchange, but also the broad meaning that must be attached to the concept of self interest. Narrow preoccupation with the economic market has led to a narrow interpretation of self interest as a myopic selfishness. As exclusive concern with immediate material rewards. So saying your self interest is just so what you can get. He's saying that's a narrow way of looking at it. Economics has been berated for allegedly drawing far reaching conclusions from a wholly unrealistic economic man who is little more than a calculating machine, responding only to monetary stimuli. So I just want to see what's his counter argument to that economic man, because again, people are he's showing this is the art of actually writing an argumentative paper is stating the other person, answering what you know their questions and their rebuttals and their arguments are, stating their arguments and maybe seeing where you concede and where you are able to counter it. That shows that you're not like this psycho biased relative individual. So economics has been berated for allegedly drawing far reaching conclusions. So it has been far reaching conclusions from a wholly unrealistic economic man who was little more than a calculating machine responding only to monetary stimuli. That is a great mistake. Self interest is not myopic selfishness. It is whatever it is that interests the participants, whatever they value, whatever goals they pursue. Participants, again, that idea of whatever they value, whatever goals they pursue. The scientist seeking to advance the frontiers of his discipline. Oh, he's kind of saying it's intrinsic in a little bit. It's not just money they want. It's the guy he would so the scientist seeking to advance the frontiers of his discipline, the missionary seeking to convert infidels to the true faith, the philanthropist seeking to bring comfort to the needy, all are pursuing their interests as they see them, as they judge them by their own values. Economy is attached to this. Yeah, there's economics that study the way it works. Yeah, there's capitalists, but these people like to run businesses. They obviously like to provide jobs. If it's solely, if it's like an evil thing, it's gonna show. It's gonna show itself, and it's gonna eventually things show themselves. The value, things show themselves. Things are revealed. So that was a broader view